So imagine you're Zorro. You've just defeated all your enemies. The corrupt alcalde that you were fighting has been banished. And so what do you do next? What's the next logical progression for the character of Zorro? Well, of course, fighting an army of undead conquistadors. Duh. This is Zorro, Swords of Hell from American Mythology. This is the first mini-series that they put out with Zorro, and this is their new direction with the character where he's fighting supernatural menaces. And so this is the actual trade paperback for the mini-series. So let's start with the cover. The covers and interiors are done by Royale and Martinez. And I gotta say, this is an amazing, amazing cover. This is one of my favorite images of Zorro ever done. So this is not necessarily representative of exactly what's inside. It's more of a symbolic cover of the general direction they're taking him, with Zorro on top of a church, you know, illuminated by red, maybe the flames of hell or something. And, you know, these faces in the background hinting at, you know, some kind of supernatural menace that he's going to be fighting. And I love his pose here with the two swords. It's just so iconic. I don't even need the faces, but I would love to see this pose, you know, with the church in the background as like a t-shirt or a poster. I mean, it's like literally one of my favorite images of Zorro ever. For the second cover, I want to show you this first. This is, you know, basically showcasing the inks and the line work that were done for the second cover. And this is actually really strong stuff, and I really like it. But it definitely lost a lot of detail in the published cover. You know, the tower is missing. The facial details in these couple of zombies in the background are missing. And, you know, just the general detail in Zorro is also missing. And so that's unfortunate. Definitely detracts, but, you know, the original line work and inking on this cover were definitely really solid. Now, this one for the third issue definitely worked. This is not in the miniseries at all, but it is a really, really cool looking cover, finding a really, really cool looking demon that they like so much they actually used it for the back cover as well. It's a really, really cool image. The fourth issue's cover is kind of okay, but again, I kind of wonder what, you know, his original pencils and inks look like on this one, because I'm wondering if something got lost in translation on this one too. So the artwork and the interior is quite good at times. This is Zorro having a friendly duel with his fiancée Lolita. But there are other times when the artwork feels off, like the shadows aren't quite as purposeful as they should be. So Royale and Martinez actually posted some of his pages that he worked on from this mini-series, and it's actually quite interesting. So, for instance, you know, in the published work, the faces are completely missing. It's just shadow, and that's honestly makes it a little less effective for these zombie conquistadors that are bursting in. And so at the bottom of the page, we have another example where, you know, this mouth is very pronounced and it almost looks like it's glowing, which may be the intention here, but in the published work, it's actually shaded in. And so, you know, the bottom half of his face just gets kind of lost to shadow, as opposed to this, you know, image of like this, you know, hellish mouth coming towards you that really made it pop. So how the artwork ended up being printed in the final product is a bit uneven, but, you know, there are still times when it is very, very good, like this great scene with the zombie conquistador facing down Zorro's fiancée. And the visual storytelling is absolutely there. I mean, the action really does flow from panel to panel, and the artist doesn't, you know, shy away from drawing, you know, crowds of characters when he needs to, you know, entire hordes of zombies, or, you know, all the people at the party, or whatever it's needed, he does it. And so what is the story to this comic? So keep in mind, everything I'm about to say is absolutely 100% real. I am not joking or exaggerating. So Zorro, after defeating his enemies, is throwing a party, and all of a sudden, zombie conquistadors break down the door and start attacking everybody. I am not kidding you. That is the plot of the first issue. And so the corrupt alcalde that Zorro defeated and who was banished, on his way out of town, just happens to run into this demon jaguar god thing and makes a deal with him to take over with using zombie conquistadors. And so he teams with Bernardo to go find his grandmother, who is this medicine woman who would know how to send the conquistadors back to hell. And yeah, this is Bernardo. I think if there was ever a movie of this, he could be played by Jason Momoa. And so, yeah, it is a crazy, crazy story. And, while I'm reading it, I'm like, that's cool, but kind of crazy and weird. But by the time I got to the end of it, by the time I turned that final page, I was just like, wow, that was awesome. There's just something really satisfying and something that really works about this miniseries. It's a series of, really great, well done action sequences with a very, satisfying, kind of climactic ending that wraps up everything. The fact that this is 4 issues really helps kind of flesh it out. I'm used to kind of only 3 issues for the Burroughs miniseries, but that 4th issue really helped it breathe and kind of let them build up to something really climactic. And yeah, it is a little over the top, when the zombie conquistadors burst into the party. Instead of freaking out, all the guys just grab their swords and start fighting, and, Zorro's mother is alive, who, normally isn't alive in a lot of versions of the character, and she absolutely kicks ass. I mean, you do not mess with Zorro's mama. His fiance kicks ass. I swear to God, if Zorro had a dog, the dog would probably take a sword and start fighting the zombies. It's just amazing. The only real flaw I felt for the story was that it was a little disorienting, especially if you're not familiar with Zorro at all. Because normally, Zorro just begins in the middle of his fight with, the Spanish soldiers and stuff. And it's really easy just to pick up on that. But this is set afterwards, and he's got a fiance, and everyone knows his identity. And it's just a little bit different. I think you can still kind of catch on to it, but you're going to probably have a better time if you know some things about the character. And I think this is basically American Mythology's version of his history. I don't think there's anything exactly that it's following. It seems to be kind of a remix, taking that original pulp story, and remixing some stuff from movies into it and kind of coming up with their own, take on the Zorro mythos, which, once you get oriented, is really good. And so I do recommend getting this story, but how should you get it? You do have the option, if you go on American Mythology's website, you can get the single issues, or you can get the trade paperback. And of course, single issues allow you to display each cover individually if that's what you want to. And trade paperback goes on your shelf. Now, trade paperback is going to be a little bit more expensive than those individual issues. This is going to run you $20. The individual issues will run you $16 altogether. What do you get for that extra $4? So the trade paperback includes a foreword by the author. There's the occasional bonus sketch, but not a whole lot of that. Like most trade paperbacks, they do throw in the variant covers. That includes some by the great Alex Toth, and of course various other artists. And so one thing that American Mythology put in the back of Fear and Four Worlds trade paperback with their Edgar Rice Burroughs comics, and in this one is a preview of other comics that are in this line. But the twist here is, instead of just being a few pages of another comic, it's actually a complete short story, because Zorro Legendary Adventures actually reprints vintage short stories. And so you get this vintage short story with this absolutely gorgeous artwork in it. So is all that worth the extra $4? I don't know. I think that's up to the reader. I mean, I think the bigger question is, do you want it on your bookshelf, or would you like it in your comic box? And so I've been sampling Zorro stuff, but this is the first time I've read something and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to get the rest of that in this particular line of Zorro comics. And, you know, it does sound crazy to have him fighting like zombies and demons and stuff. But the way I look at it is similar to, you know, when Superman and all these other superheroes were introduced back in the 30s, you know, they fought a lot of normal people. They fought like racketeers and saboteurs and all this stuff. And then eventually, you know, they would get introduced to, you know, super villains, you know, super criminals like Lex Luthor, or, you know, aliens from outer space and stuff like that. And that just became synonymous with what they fought. And so, you know, Zorro, you know, is very similar here. You know, we're used to him fighting these corrupt Spanish soldiers, and that's great, but that story's been told so many times that it's great to see something new done with the character. He's more versatile than just, you know, that one conflict. And so this is something that's different, it's cool, but it still fits within his mythos. And so, you know, as far as the tone and kind of the age appropriateness of this comic goes, I will say that Zorro is still Zorro. He is still cracking jokes. He is still, you know, smiling in the face of danger. You know, that swashbuckling nature of the character does not change just because he's fighting the undead. And I think this comic is appropriate for most ages. I think that if your kid can sit through an episode of Mandalorian, they should be fine with the American Mythology Zorro stuff. It reminds me a lot of Hellboy, the comic by Mike Mignola. It's, you know, it can be a little dark and a little scary sometimes because you are dealing with supernatural forces, but it's really, you know, about, you know, kind of the old stories we used to tell ourselves, the old scary folk tales and stuff like that. And that's really what the American Mythology Zorro comics is doing. Honestly, I would love to see Mignola actually do a mini series or like do a Hellboy crossover. I think that would be cool. Like, you know, Hellboy goes to, you know, some kind of ghost version of Alta California and helps the spirit of Zorro in one last battle or something. I think that would be just be perfect because, again, it really feels a lot like Hellboy stuff, and I love that to death. So that's it. Like and subscribe for more videos, and until next time, beware of party crashing zombie conquistadors. See ya.